Late night at Mercy General Hospital, a young woman was rushed into the emergency bay, blood soaking through her expensive silk blouse. She gripped the nurse's wrist and whispered, "Please, just make it fast. I don't want to feel the pain." No doctor arrived in time. A man in a faded security uniform burst through the door, his voice low and steady. "I'm a medic. Let me help." He pulled off his jacket and draped it over her trembling body. Under the harsh fluorescent light, faded numbers were visible on his forearm, military ink. He was a hero. But why was he living like a shadow? The hallways of Mercy General Hospital smelled like disinfectant and silence. Marcus Johnson walked them every night, boots scuffing against polished floors that reflected nothing but emptiness. He wore the same Navy security uniform he'd worn for 3 years. The fabric was worn thin at the elbows. His name tag hung crooked. No one ever straightened it. He was 38 years old, but his hands looked older. His dark skin marked with scars that ran along his knuckles, the kind you got from holding people together when they were falling apart. Most nights were quiet. He checked doors, logged rounds, watched drunk drivers get stitched up in the ER. He never asked questions, never offered advice. He just made sure the building stayed standing until morning. At 2 a.m, he sat in the staff cafeteria with a thermos of black coffee. On the table in front of him was a folded piece of construction paper. He opened it carefully. Inside was a crayon drawing of a brown-skinned man in a blue uniform standing next to a little girl with black curly hair in 2 puffs. Above them, a lopsided sun. Below, in uneven letters, "Daddy is my superhero." Maya had given it to him that morning before school. She was 8 years old. She still believed that. He folded it back up and tucked it into his shirt pocket. The radio on his belt crackled. A voice came through, sharp and fast. "Security to emergency entrance now." Marcus stood. He didn't run. Running made people panic. He walked quickly, his stride long and even, the way he'd been trained. When he pushed through the double doors, the cold night air hit him first. Then he saw the blood. A black sedan was parked crooked near the ambulance bay, its front end crumpled. The driver's side door hung open. A woman was being pulled from the back seat by 2 paramedics. Her head lolled to the side. Her blouse was soaked red from the collarbone down. One of the paramedics shouted over his shoulder, "Where's the doctor?" A nurse stood near the entrance, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was tight. "He's stuck in surgery, another 10 minutes." The paramedic swore under his breath. They lifted the woman onto a gurney and wheeled her through the doors. Marcus followed. Inside, under the fluorescent lights, he got a better look at her. Mid-30s, dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. Her skin was pale, lips colorless. She was conscious, barely. Her eyes rolled toward the ceiling, unfocused. The nurse leaned over her, trying to keep her still. "Ma'am, can you hear me? We're getting you help. Just hold on." The woman's hand shot out and grabbed the nurse's wrist. Her grip was weak, trembling. "Please," she whispered. Her voice was, "just make it fast. I don't want to feel the pain." The nurse looked up at the paramedic. He shook his head.
"We need to stop the bleeding now, or she's not going to make it." Marcus stepped forward. His voice was calm, low enough that it didn't startle anyone. "I'm a medic. Let me help." The paramedic turned. His eyes flicked to Marcus's uniform, then back to his face. "Your security." Marcus didn't argue. He pulled off his jacket and draped it over the woman's chest, then rolled up his sleeves. The faded ink on his dark forearm became visible. Numbers. A unit designation. The paramedic saw it and stepped aside. Marcus moved quickly. He pressed his hands to the wound, applying pressure with the heel of his palm. Blood welled up between his fingers, warm and slick against his brown skin. He didn't flinch. "Get me gauze and something to elevate her legs." The nurse handed him a stack of sterile pads. He packed the wound, his movements precise and efficient. The woman's breathing was shallow, her pulse weak under his fingertips. He checked her pupils. One was blown, not good. He tilted her head back slightly, clearing her airway. Then he spoke to her, his voice steady. "You're gonna be okay. Stay with me." Her eyes found his. For a moment, they focused. She stared at him like she was trying to remember something. Then the doctor burst through the door. "I've got it from here." Marcus stepped back. He wiped his hands on a towel someone handed him and watched as they moved the woman into a trauma bay. The door swung shut. The hallway fell quiet again. The paramedic clapped him on the shoulder. "Nice work." Marcus didn't reply. He picked up his jacket from the floor, shook it out, and put it back on. Then he walked back to his post. By the time his shift ended, the sun was rising. He clocked out, changed into his street clothes, and drove home in a 10-year-old truck with a cracked windshield. Maya was already awake when he walked through the door. She sat at the kitchen table in her pajamas, coloring in a workbook. Her brown eyes lit up when she saw him, and she grinned. "Hi, Daddy." He kissed the top of her head, her thick curls soft against his lips. "Morning, sweetheart." She pointed to the page in front of her. "Look, I finished all the math problems." He sat down next to her and checked her work. Every answer was correct. He felt something tighten in his chest. "You're too smart for me." She laughed. "No, I'm not." He made her breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast. They ate together in the small kitchen with sunlight streaming through the window. She told him about school, about her friend Jasmine, about the science project they were working on. He listened to every word. When it was time to walk her to the bus stop, he held his hand. She was getting too old for that, but she still did it. He didn't tell her to stop. After the bus pulled away, he went back inside and collapsed onto the couch. Sleep came fast and dreamless. 3 days later, he was back at the hospital. Same hallways, same rounds. He'd almost forgotten about the woman in the ER. Then he saw her. She was standing near the main entrance talking to a man in a suit. He wore a tailored blazer and heels that clicked against the tile. Her hair was pulled back. Her posture was perfect. She looked nothing like the bleeding woman on the gurney, but it was her. Marcus kept walking.
He didn't stare, didn't stop. He had no reason to, but she saw him. Her eyes tracked him across the lobby. He felt it. He kept his head down and turned the corner. Later that night, his supervisor called him into the office. The man was in his 50s, balding, perpetually tired. "Johnson, you got a visitor." Marcus frowned. "Who?" The supervisor gestured toward the window. Outside in the hallway stood the woman from the ER. She was alone this time. Her arms were crossed. Marcus stepped out. She turned to face him. "You're the one who helped me." It wasn't a question. He nodded once. She studied him for a moment. Her expression was unreadable. "I wanted to say thank you." Marcus shook his head. "You don't need to." She didn't seem to know what to do with that. She shifted her weight, glancing at the floor before meeting his eyes again. "The doctors told me you saved my life." He didn't respond. She extended her hand. "I'm Catherine Blake." He looked at her hand but didn't take it. "I know who you are." Her jaw tightened. She lowered her hand. "Then you know I don't like owing people." Marcus's voice stayed level. "You don't owe me anything." Catherine stared at him. Something flickered in her eyes. Confusion maybe, or irritation. "I'd like to do something for you. Compensation, recognition, whatever you want." Marcus shook his head again. "I don't need that." Her voice sharpened. "Everyone needs something." He met her gaze. His tone didn't change. "I just need you to live better than you were that night." For the first time, she had nothing to say. Marcus turned and walked away. He didn't look back. Catherine stood in the hallway for a long time. Then she left, but she didn't forget. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus heard nothing from her. He worked his shifts, picked up Maya from school, helped her with homework, made dinner, tucked her in, read her stories until she fell asleep. It was a small life, a quiet one. He didn't need it to be anything else. But late at night, when the hospital was silent and he walked the empty corridors, he sometimes thought about the woman with the sharp eyes and the expensive clothes. He wondered if she remembered what she'd said that night. "Please, just make it fast." He wondered what kind of life made someone say that. And he wondered if she was living any differently now. He didn't expect to find out, but he would. Catherine Blake didn't sleep well anymore. She used to pride herself on it. 6 hours sharp, no dreams,
No interruptions, just efficient rest that kept her functional through 16-hour days and back-to-back board meetings. But now, every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ceiling of the emergency room, the fluorescent lights, the taste of copper in her mouth, and the face of a black man she didn't know. His strong hand steady and sure, telling her she was going to be okay. She hated that she remembered it so clearly. 2 weeks had passed since she tried to thank him. 2 weeks since she'd walked away like she hadn't just offered him everything most people spent their lives chasing. Recognition, money, a favor from one of the most powerful women in the state. He'd refused it all. She didn't understand people like that. Catherine sat in her corner office on the 43rd floor, staring at a contract she should have signed an hour ago.
The city stretched out below her, a grid of glass and steel. She'd built her empire here. She knew how to win, how to take control, how to make people need her more than she needed them. But Marcus Johnson hadn't needed anything, and that unsettled her more than the accident itself. Her assistant knocked and entered without waiting for a response. "The gala is tonight. Car leaves at 7. Catherine glanced at the clock. It was already 5:30. "Fine." The assistant lingered. "Also, the hospital called. They're naming you as the keynote speaker. They want you to talk about your recovery." Catherine's jaw tightened. "I didn't agree to that." The assistant hesitated. "They said it would be good for your image, show vulnerability, relatability." Catherine looked up sharply. "I don't need to show anything." The assistant nodded quickly and left. Catherine leaned back in her chair. She knew what they wanted. A story. A narrative. The CEO who survived. The woman who came back stronger. It was good PR. It always was. But she didn't want to tell that story. Because the truth was, she hadn't come back stronger. She'd come back afraid. At 7:15, Catherine stepped out of a black sedan in front of Mercy General Hospital. The building was lit up for the event. Banners draped across the entrance. Inside, the main atrium had been transformed. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, a string quartet playing near the silent auction tables. Donors in tuxedos and evening gowns mingled under chandeliers that cost more than most people's houses. Catherine moved through the crowd with practiced ease. She smiled, shook hands, thanked people for their generosity. She'd done this 100 times before. But tonight, she couldn't focus. Her eyes kept scanning the room. She didn't know why he wouldn't be here. He was a night security guard. This wasn't his world. Then she saw him. He was standing near the back of the room, just outside the main floor. He wore the same Navy uniform, his hands clasped behind his back. His dark skin seemed to absorb the soft lighting, making him almost invisible in the shadows. He wasn't watching the guests, he was watching the exits. Catherine's jaw tightened. She turned back to the conversation she was supposed to be having, but the words coming out of her mouth felt distant, automatic. Her mind was somewhere else. Halfway through dinner, someone collapsed. It happened fast. A man in his 60s, sitting 3 tables over, clutched his chest and pitched forward. His wife screamed. People jumped up, chairs scraping against the floor. Someone shouted for a doctor. Catherine stood, her pulse spiking. Then Marcus was there. He moved through the crowd like water, calm and unrushed. He knelt beside the man and loosened his tie. He checked his pulse, tilted his head back, started compressions. The room went silent, except for the sound of Marcus counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. His hands moved in a steady rhythm, pressing down on the man's sternum with controlled force. Someone ran up with a defibrillator. Marcus took it without looking up, attached the pads, and stepped back. Clear. The man's body jerked. Nothing. Marcus checked again, started compressions again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Catherine couldn't look away. She'd seen him save her life, but she'd been half-conscious, barely aware. Now she saw everything.
The precision, the focus, the absolute certainty in every movement. He wasn't panicking, he wasn't second-guessing himself. He was doing what he'd been trained to do, and he was saving a life.
The man gasped, his eyes fluttered open. Marcus helped him onto his side, keeping him stable. Paramedics arrived moments later and took over. Marcus stood, wiped his hands on his pants, and stepped back into the crowd. No one stopped him. No one asked his name. He just disappeared. Catherine's hands were shaking. She set down her glass before anyone noticed. She found him 20 minutes later standing outside near the loading dock. He was alone, leaning against the brick wall with his arms crossed. His uniform was wrinkled. There was a smudge of something on his sleeve. He looked up when she approached. His expression didn't change. Catherine stopped a few feet away. She didn't know what to say. Finally, she managed, "You did it again." Marcus glanced back toward the building. "He'll be fine." Catherine shook her head. "That's not what I meant." He looked at her, then really looked at her. His eyes were steady. No anger, no expectation, just quiet patience. She took a breath. "I need to know something." He waited. "Why are you here?" Marcus frowned slightly. "I work here." Catherine's voice sharpened. "No, I mean, why are you doing this? You were a combat medic. You have a silver star. I looked you up. You saved 18 soldiers in a single firefight. You were decorated, honored, and now you're working night security at a hospital for minimum wage." Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even. "That was a long time ago." Catherine stepped closer. "So what happened? Why aren't you out there doing what you were trained to do?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked past her toward the parking lot. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "Because I have a daughter, and she needs me more than anyone else does." Catherine felt something crack open inside her chest. She wanted to say something, apologize maybe. But Marcus was already walking away. That night, Catherine sat alone in her penthouse. The city glittered below her, endless and indifferent. She poured herself a glass of wine and didn't drink it. She kept thinking about what he'd said. "She needs me more than anyone else does." It was such a simple answer, so clear. And it made her feel small, because Catherine didn't have anyone who needed her like that. She had employees, investors, a PR team, but no one who would care if she came home late. No one who drew pictures of her in crayon. She built everything she had, and it had cost her everything else. The guilt settled in slowly, heavy and cold. She'd tried to erase him. After the accident, she'd made sure his name stayed out of the press. She didn't want people asking questions. Didn't want the story to be about a black security guard saving a white CEO. It didn't fit the narrative, so she buried it. And now she realized what that meant. She'd taken credit for her own survival, let people believe she'd fought through it alone, let them call her strong, resilient, a survivor. But she wasn't any of those things. She was a coward, and Marcus Johnson knew it. The next morning, Catherine called an emergency meeting with her communications team. They gathered in the conference room, laptops open, coffee in hand. She stood at the head of the table. "I need to make a statement." Her PR director looked up. "About what?" Catherine's voice was firm. "About the accident. About who really saved me."
The room went quiet. Her PR director set down his pen. "Catherine, we've already moved past that. The narrative is set. You don't need to—" Catherine cut him off. "I'm not asking for advice. I'm telling you what's happening." He stared at her. "This is a mistake." Catherine met his gaze. "Maybe, but it's mine to make." 2 days later, Catherine stood in front of a wall of cameras. Reporters filled the room, notebooks ready, microphones clustered on the podium in front of her. She took a breath. 3 weeks ago, I was in a car accident. I was brought to Mercy General Hospital in critical condition. The doctors were delayed. I didn't think I was going to make it. She looked directly into the nearest camera.
But I did, because a man named Marcus Johnson saved my life. The room erupted in questions. Catherine held up a hand. He's a night security guard at the hospital. He's also a decorated combat medic. And when no one else could help me, he stepped in. He didn't ask for recognition. He didn't ask for anything. And I never gave him credit. Her voice cracked slightly, but she kept going. I let people believe I survived on my own, that I was strong enough to pull through. But the truth is, I would have died that night if it wasn't for him. And I owe him everything. She looked down at her hands. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. The press conference ended. Catherine walked off stage and didn't look back. Marcus saw it on the television in the hospital cafeteria. He was sitting alone eating a sandwich Maya had packed for him that morning. The news was playing on the wall-mounted screen. He wasn't paying attention until he heard his name. He looked up. Catherine's face filled the screen. She was speaking into a microphone, her voice steady and clear. A man named Marcus Johnson saved my life. Marcus sat down his sandwich. Maya was at the table with him. She'd come to visit after school the way she did sometimes. She was coloring in a notebook, her tongue poking out in concentration. Her hair was pulled back in 2 neat braids he'd done that morning before his shift ended. She looked up at the screen. "Daddy, is that you?" Marcus didn't answer. He just stared. Catherine kept talking. She told the whole story. The accident, the emergency room, the way he'd refused her thanks, the way she'd buried his name. And then she apologized. Maya tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy!" Marcus looked down at her. Her eyes were wide and bright. "You're a hero!" He swallowed hard. His throat felt tight. "I'm just the guy who did his job." Maya shook her head. "No, you're a superhero." She held up her notebook. On the page was another crayon drawing. A brown-skinned man in a blue uniform, a little girl with black curly hair and braids, and now standing next to them, a woman in a fancy dress. Marcus's chest ached. He pulled Maya into a hug. She wrapped her arms around his neck and squeezed tight. On the screen, Catherine finished her statement and walked away. Marcus didn't know what to feel, but for the first time in a long time, he felt seen. The phone started ringing at 6 in the morning. Marcus ignored the first 3 calls. By the 4th, Maya was awake, standing in the doorway of his bedroom in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, your phone won't stop." He sat up and checked the screen. 15 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from numbers he didn't recognize. He scrolled through a few of the messages. "Is this Marcus Johnson? We'd love to interview you. Channel 7 News wants to tell your story. We're offering $50,000 for an exclusive sit-down." He set the phone down and looked at Maya. "Go get dressed. I'll make breakfast." She nodded and padded back to her room. Marcus went to the kitchen and started making pancakes. The phone kept buzzing on the counter. He turned it off. By the time Maya came downstairs, the pancakes were ready. She climbed into her chair and poured syrup over the stack in front of her. Marcus sat across from her with black coffee. She looked at him while she chewed. "Are you famous now?" Marcus shook his head. "No." Maya frowned. "But the lady on TV said your name, and she said you saved her." Marcus sipped his coffee. "That doesn't make me famous. It just means people know what happened." Maya thought about that. "Jasmine's mom saw it. She told Jasmine you're a hero." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just reached across the table and ruffled her hair. "Eat your breakfast." She grinned and went back to her pancakes. Over the next 3 days, the calls didn't stop. Reporters showed up at the hospital. A man in a suit waited outside Marcus's apartment building with a camera crew. Someone left a business card under his windshield wiper with a note that said, "Let's talk, 6 figures." Marcus threw it away. He kept his head down, worked his shifts, walked Maya to the bus stop, helped her with homework. But everywhere he went, people were watching, pointing, whispering. At the hospital, his supervisor called him into the office. "Johnson, you've got a problem." Marcus sat down. "What kind of problem?" The supervisor leaned back in his chair. You're a distraction. People are coming here just to see you. We've had 3 news vans in the parking lot this week. Administration is concerned. Marcus's jaw tightened. I'm just doing my job. The supervisor nodded. I know, but they're asking me to put you on leave until this blows over. Marcus stared at him. You're suspending me? The supervisor held up a hand. Paid leave, just for a week or 2. Let things calm down. Marcus stood. I need this job. The supervisor looked uncomfortable. I know, but it's not my call. Marcus left without another word. That night, he sat on the couch with Maya curled up next to him. She was watching cartoons. He wasn't watching anything. He was staring at the wall, trying to figure out what came next. He'd built his life around routine, predictability. He knew what every day looked like. He knew how to keep Maya safe and fed and happy. He knew how to stay invisible. But now, he wasn't invisible anymore, and he didn't know how to fix that. Maya looked up at him. Daddy, are you okay? He forced a smile. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm okay. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. She just snuggled closer and went back to her show. 2 days later, someone knocked on his door. Marcus opened it. Catherine Blake stood on the other side. She looked different. No suit, no heels, just jeans and a plain sweater. Her hair was down. She looked tired. Marcus didn't say anything. Catherine shifted her weight. Can I come in? He stepped aside. She walked past him into the small living room. Maya was at the kitchen table coloring. She looked up and stared.
Catherine gave her a small smile. Hi. Maya didn't smile back. She looked at her dad. Marcus walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. Maya, this is Catherine Braithwaite. She's the woman from the news. Maya's eyes went wide. The one you saved? Catherine nodded. That's right. Maya studied her for a long moment, her brown eyes serious and assessing. Then she went back to her coloring. Marcus gestured toward the couch. Catherine sat down. He stayed standing. She looked up at him. I'm sorry. Marcus crossed his arms. For what? Catherine's voice was quiet. For all of it. For putting you in this position. For making your life harder. I thought I was doing the right thing by telling the truth, but I didn't think about what it would cost you. Marcus didn't respond right away. He just looked at her. Finally, he sat down in the chair across from her. Why are you here? Catherine took a breath. Because I want to make it right. Marcus shook his head. You can't. What's done is done. Catherine leaned forward. Maybe, but I can try. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. She sat it on the coffee table between them. I'm starting a foundation, the Heart Foundation. It's focused on emergency medical training for communities that don't have access to it. I want to build a network of first responders, teach people how to save lives when help isn't coming fast enough. Marcus glanced at the folder, but didn't touch it. Catherine kept talking. I need someone to design the training programs, someone who knows what they're doing, someone who's been in the field, someone like you. Marcus looked up at her. I'm not interested. Catherine's voice sharpened. Why not? Marcus gestured toward Maya. Because I have a daughter, and I don't want her growing up with a dad who's never home. Catherine's expression softened. You wouldn't have to be. This isn't a full-time position. It's consulting. You design the curriculum, train the trainers, then you step back. You'd still have time for her. Marcus didn't answer. Catherine stood. Just think about it, please. She left the folder on the table and walked to the door. She looked back at him one more time. You're right. What's done is done. But that doesn't mean we can't do something good with it. She left. Marcus sat there for a long time staring at the folder. Maya came over and climbed into his lap. She looked at the folder too. What's that? Marcus wrapped his arms around her. I don't know yet. That night, after Maya went to bed, Marcus opened the folder. Inside were blueprints for a training center, a proposed curriculum, a list of cities that didn't have adequate emergency services, and a handwritten note from Catherine. You taught me what it means to save a life. Let me help you teach others. Marcus closed the folder, but he didn't throw it away. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in front of a room full of volunteers. They were firefighters, EMTs, teachers, and civilians who wanted to learn how to help. The training center wasn't finished yet. They were meeting in a rented warehouse with folding chairs and a projector screen. Marcus had never taught before. He didn't know how to stand in front of people and explain what he knew. But Catherine had asked him to try, and Maya had told him he should. So he did. He started with the basics: how to check for a pulse, how to clear an airway, how to apply pressure to a wound.
He demonstrated on a mannequin. Then he walked through the room, correcting grips, answering questions, showing them how to move with confidence. By the end of the session, his voice was hoarse, but the volunteers were smiling, nodding, taking notes. One of them came up to him afterward. "Thank you. I've always wanted to know how to do this." Marcus nodded. "You'll be ready when it matters." Catherine was waiting for him outside. She leaned against her car, arms crossed, watching him. "How'd it go?" Marcus shrugged. "Okay, I think." Catherine smiled. "They loved you." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. They stood there in the parking lot, the sun setting behind the warehouse. For the first time, the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. Catherine looked at him. "I know I can't undo what I did, but I hope this helps." Marcus met her eyes. "It does." She nodded. Then she got in her car and drove away. 1 year later, the Johnson Center for Community Healing opened its doors. It was a 3-story building on the edge of the city, built with donations from across the state. Inside were training rooms, simulation labs, and a wall covered in photos of people who completed the program. Over 2,000 volunteers had been trained. 37 lives had been saved because of what they learned. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was packed. Local officials, press, families who'd lost loved ones, and families who'd been saved. Maya stood next to Marcus, holding his hand. She wore a yellow dress, her hair styled in beautiful cornrows with colorful beads at the ends that clicked softly when she moved. She kept bouncing on her toes. Catherine stood at the podium. "This center exists because one man knew how to act when no one else could." Marcus Johnson didn't ask for recognition. He didn't ask for anything, but he gave everything when it mattered most. She looked over at him. "And now, because of him, thousands of others will be able to do the same." The crowd applauded. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Maya squeezed his hand. Catherine gestured toward the microphone. "Marcus, would you like to say a few words?" He hesitated. Then he walked up to the podium. The crowd went quiet. He looked out at them, faces he didn't know, people who were here because of something he'd done. He cleared his throat.
"I'm not good with microphones. I'm better with heartbeats." A few people laughed. He glanced at Maya. She was watching him with wide eyes. "I didn't do any of this for recognition. I did it because someone needed help. That's all. And if I can teach one person how to do the same, then maybe the next time someone's lying on the ground, scared and bleeding, they won't have to wait for a hero, because the person next to them will already know what to do." He stepped back. The applause was louder this time. After the ceremony, Marcus stood outside with Maya. Catherine joined them. She looked at the building. "We did it." Marcus nodded. "You did it." Catherine shook her head. "No, we did." Maya tugged on Marcus's sleeve, the beads in her hair clicking musically. "Daddy, can we go get ice cream now?" Marcus smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, we can go get ice cream." Catherine looked at them. Something soft crossed her face. "Can I come?" Marcus glanced at Maya. She nodded. "Okay." They walked to the parking lot together. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the pavement. Maya skipped ahead, humming to herself, her beads clicking a cheerful rhythm. Catherine walked beside Marcus. "Thank you." Marcus looked at her. "For what?" She smiled. for not giving up on me. Marcus didn't answer, but he didn't need to. They got in the car and drove toward the ice cream shop. Maya talked the whole way, telling Catherine about school and her science project and the new book she was reading. Catherine listened, really listened.